Claude Debussy's music feels like a dream you once had, but can't quite put into words. Notes that shimmer like moonlight, chords that drift like water, melodies that seem to arrive from somewhere far beyond the page. But behind that dreamlike beauty was a man who struggled, rebelled, and reshaped music through sheer imagination. This is the story of Claude Debussy, the composer who painted with sound and changed how the world understands beauty. Claude Debussy was born in 1862 to a family with no musical background. In a France recovering from war and searching for identity, he grew up in modest circumstances. Money was tight, opportunities were few, but one thing stood out. He listened deeply. At age 10, he entered the Paris Conservatoire, a strict, traditional institution. They expected obedience, rules, structure, but Debussy's mind didn't work that way. While other students practiced scales, Debussy drifted toward unusual chords, unfamiliar harmonies, musical colors no one else heard. His teachers weren't impressed. One called his ideas bizarre. Another said he lacked discipline. But the truth was simple. Debussy wasn't trying to break the rules. He was trying to find beauty the rules couldn't explain. In his 20s, Debussy traveled to Italy and later to Russia, absorbing every new sound he could find: Tchaikovsky, Mussorgsky, Rimsky-Korsakov. These voices opened new doors. But the moment that truly changed him happened in 1889 at the Paris Exposition. There, he heard Javanese gamelan music for the first time, shimmering gongs, hypnotic patterns, cycles that breathed rather than marched, music that had no beginning and no end. It didn't sound like Western classical music. It sounded like a living atmosphere. Debussy didn't copy the music, he absorbed its spirit. It taught him that music could float, expand, and glow without strict direction. Slowly, quietly, he began building a new sound world. It would soon reshape Western music entirely. One of his earliest major successes was Clair de Lune, a piece so gentle and luminous that listeners often assume he wrote it in peaceful solitude. But the truth? Debussy wrote it during a chaotic and financially unstable time in his life. Clair de Lune wasn't the sound of calm. It was the sound of longing of a young composer dreaming of a more beautiful world. Around this time, Debussy also wrote works like Arabesque No. 1 and Prelude to the Afternoon of a Faun, pieces filled with elegance and liquid harmonies. They didn't sound like Mozart. They didn't sound like Beethoven. They sounded like no one else. Critics were confused. Audiences were uncertain. But slowly, quietly, the world began to listen. Debussy hated labels, but history eventually gave him one: the father of musical impressionism. Like Monet, Debussy wasn't painting objects. He was painting light, color, and atmosphere. He once wrote, "Music is the space between the notes." To him, silence wasn't emptiness. It was another color on the palette. In his piano preludes, harmonies drift like mist. In La Mer, the orchestra becomes the sea itself. And in nocturnes, night doesn't just fall, it breathes. Debussy didn't want listeners to follow a story. He wanted them to feel something. His greatest achievements came in the early 1900s. His orchestral masterpiece, La Mer, wasn't a romantic storm. It was the ocean as a living spirit. He didn't imitate waves. He captured their movement, their light, their mystery. Then came works like Prelude, Emosh, and the opera Pelléas, A Male's End, a work so subtle and atmospheric that it permanently changed the direction of French music. Through all this, his personal life was turbulent. Relationships were complicated. Finances rose and fell. But somehow, the more chaotic his life became, the more peaceful his music sounded. It was as if Debussy wrote the calm he could not find. By his later years, Debussy struggled with illness and a changing Europe moving toward war, yet he continued composing with astonishing sensitivity. Pieces like La Cattedra Langluti, The Sunken Cathedral, echo with ancient power rising from the sea. Others, like his late sonatas, feel intimate and fragile. Debussy died in 1918 at age 55. During the final months of World War I, his funeral took place while Paris was under bombardment. No grand procession, no national ceremony, just a quiet farewell in a darkened city. And yet, his music survived. It drifted beyond the war, beyond the century, beyond anything he ever imagined. Today, Claude Debussy's music is everywhere, in films, in quiet moments, in the background of our lives when we need beauty the most. His legacy isn't just melody or harmony, it is a way of listening, a reminder that art doesn't always need to explain. Sometimes it just needs to glow. Debussy famously believed that music begins where words are powerless. More than a century later, we still return to his music for the same reason, to find the feelings we can't describe, and the beauty we didn't know we were missing. If Debussy's world of sound inspired you, you can subscribe for more stories of artists and thinkers who shaped our world.